This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about the finale of Echo, Season 1, Episode 5, Maya.
It's a good thing you got here early.
I didn't realize there'd be so many people.
Oh, there always are.
People come from all over for our Choctaw Nation Pow Wows.
Is that right? Your necklace. It's American Sign Language. It says I love you.
Oh, you sign?
I try for my niece.
Oh, I learned for my daughter. She's passed on now.
Yes, I've lost someone who I love. It's the kind of pain you never quite get over.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I keep it up now for my granddaughter.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, tell me about her.
Welcome back, fellow Defenders, to the finale episode on the Defenders podcast, where we are going to be talking all about Episode 5 from Season 1 of Echo, Maya. I am one of your hosts, John.
I'm one of your other hosts, Derek.
And rounding out this trio for this very special episode, I'm Chris.
Excellent stuff. Yes, we are into the end game of what happens in Echo.
Yeah, or the start game of what happens in Daredevil Born Again.
Well, that is true. Yes.
Just in case you didn't get the chance to watch it, because we will, of course, spoil everything that happens in this episode. There is a post-credit scene in this episode. I did notice on Disney Plus that the minute it comes up to the credits, it goes, do you want to skip the credits? And I didn't. But I wonder if that takes you directly to the scene, or does it skip past the post-credit scene? So if you did that, make sure you watch the post-credit.
For sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Or mid-credit. Sorry, mid-credit, isn't it?
I guess so.
Yeah, there's credits
Technically, because it's Disney Plus, there's always the additional credits for all the other regions.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yes, we are going to be getting into our spoiler-filled discussion of Episode 5 of Echo. Before we do, remember, fellow Defenders, to pop on over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast if you're new to us, or you can check out all the other podcasts that we have done, including those over on the Defenders podcast, in particular, the Marvel Netflix stuff around Daredevil seasons 1 to 3. So yes, you can listen back as you watch those on Disney Plus. We also love to get your thoughts, feedback, and theories, observations, comments. So you can send in emails to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or you can head on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. Without further ado, shall we get into our episode details for Episode 5 of Echo, Maya? Derek, who gave us what, were, when, how, and why?
Well, of course, Echo, the character, was created by David Mack and Joe Quesada. The head writer for this show is Marion Dayre. The writers for this episode are Amy Rardin, Stephen P. Judd, Ellen Morton, and Chantelle M. Wells. We mentioned Stephen, Ellen, and Chantelle in previous episodes, but this is the first episode that Amy is a writer on. She is an executive producer on this show and previously worked on Jane the Virgin and the Charmed reboot, interestingly.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
I didn't even know there was a Charmed reboot.
No, me neither.
I think it came out 2018 to 2020, so it went for about 3 seasons.
Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. And the director for this episode, once again, is Sidney Freeland, who directed 4 of the 5 episodes of Echo.
Excellent stuff. Yes. Maintaining her work as the director here for this season of Echo.
Exactly. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Echo Episode 5, Maya?
Sure. In a flashback to her childhood, Maya hits a woodpecker with a slingshot. Taloa reprimands Maya for hurting an innocent life, and with her hands glowing, heals the woodpecker. Later, the two release it back into the wild. Having left Tamaha and on the road, Maya stops off at services, unaware that back in Tamaha, her family are in danger, as Fisk plans retribution for her rejection of his offer to return to New York as his partner. In Tamaha, as the community gets ready for the Choctaw Nation Pow Wow, Biscuits messages Maya that Chula and Bonnie are missing, and she returns to Tamaha. She quickly visits Chula's home and is met by a vision of her mother, Taloa. Taloa tells her that she is the embodiment of their people's legacy and that this legacy will echo through her actions. The vision ends revealing Chula's finished garment. At the Choctaw Pow Wow festival, Maya locates Fisk, who has kidnapped Chula and Bonnie and threatens to kill her entire family for betraying him. While Biscuits incapacitates Fisk's men with a monster truck and Henry takes out Zane, Maya shares her Choctaw powers with Chula and Bonnie, who overpower Fisk's men. Using her powers, Maya takes Fisk to the memory of his father beating his mother in an effort to heal his trauma and help him let go of his anger. Returning to reality, an outraged Fisk demands to know what she did to him and leaves the festival before the police arrive. The next day, Maya joins her family at a eat-out at Chula's home, while in a mid-credit scene, Fisk is on his airplane watching with interest a news story that talks about the lack of frontrunners in the New York mayoral elections and sparks an unexpected idea in the Kingpin. Well, that's what I'm assuming anyway. That an idea is forming within the mind, closely around the bullet hole area of Fisk's brain.
Or the former bullet hole area. We'll talk about it as the episode goes on. But do you think Fisk is born again, potentially, in this moment?
I think so.
Or in this episode, at least. Yeah.
I think you might be thinking of some kind of rain, as in R-E-I-G-N.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Yes, a bit of rain to come for Fisk, which will be very cool.
But only if someone is born again. Ooh.
Yes,
Ooh.
yes.
Who might that be?
I don't know.
Will it be the Iron Fist?
Wait, rumor is there is apparently a new Iron Fist show in development at Marvel.
Ooh,
yes,
interesting.
with Danny Rand to return.
Ooh,
but
He will
not
not
as
be
the Iron
main,
Fist. Yeah.
But
No,
he
he
will
could-
not be the main Iron
No, it could. Well, yes, because Iron Fist is regenerated, and takes over that mantle. Oh, that'd be really interesting.
And yeah, we did see at the end of the second season of Iron Fist, if you did get there, the Colleen Wing was the Iron Fist, and Danny Rand also had Iron Fist powers at the end of that season. So you could have
exactly.
two. Yeah, absolutely could if they decide to move on. But I don't know about any of these rumors at the moment because I think everybody's just going. So Echo, everybody's now watching the shows for the first time, and all of their theories are just the theories that they published 6 or 7 years ago about how the shows would continue. And they're now saying, "Oh, new rumor suggests," when they were just their theories back 3 or 4
Well,
years
if we don't get an Iron Fist, we've always got Iron Fisk.
We do have Iron Fisk, Iron-headed Fisk, I think.
Yeah, exactly. But shall we get into our top 5 fight points for this final episode of Echo? First off, fight point number 1, Maya already a crack shot.
Yes, the flashback here at the beginning, where we have Maya coming out of the shadows, coming out of the trees to take out the woodpecker that we've seen is very much connected to the Choctaw Nation.
Yes.
And she takes it out with a catapult, just like Dennis the Menace.
Yeah, absolutely. What does it, Taloa calls the woodpecker Biscuits,
Yes.
and that the woodpecker taps out messages or warnings. There's a symbol of warning, effectively.
Yeah.
A crack shot at an early age. I mean, again, in this immediate moment, I was thinking, is this suggestive of, the child that pulls the wings off a butterfly, and hence, that's why her language is violence, as we talked about in the previous episode, or, ultimately we do learn, that she was just trying to be able to touch it. So she was trying to kind of scare it or something.
Trying to see if she could hit it.
Yeah, I guess. So
it is definitely a childish thing. I remember this from being a kid.
Went too far.
Will we try and see if we can break that? Not thinking what would happen after you break the thing.
Yeah, or if we break it.
Yeah,
exactly. No, exactly. So probably in that wheelhouse. But I think interestingly here with this flashback, we see Taloa has this kind of power of healing.
Yes, we do.
As she uses it on the sort of knocked out woodpecker.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting because they are giving Echo a new power set, new ability.
Yeah.
It's basically right at the end. Every superhero film. Wait, here's a new power you might need in the future, which you're going to need in this.
And it's interesting that it's told to us through the flashback, isn't it? Because you'd understand now that Maya had known this from when she was a child, that her mom was able to heal things, right? So, but this experience of having this connection to the ancestors over the course of these episodes, of this time that she's been at home at Tamaha, probably connects it much more to now understanding what that power was that she saw her mother use once when she was a child. So
exactly, it's kind of it's that thing as a kid where something happens within the family and you don't think it's necessarily special or different until you get context to it whenever that comes to you.
Exactly.
And in this case, I mean, even we have heard that Maya's mum has been described as a healer.
Yeah.
And that has different connotations as well.
Exactly.
Whether it's a doctor or a shaman or something like that. So, but here we see that this is through the power coming through from the ancestors and the intrinsic link that Taloa has with that. I do like as well that you suddenly get that jolt as she's doing this, which takes Maya back to the car crash, and you get that great aspect with the heartbeats again as Maya hears her mother's heartbeat fade. And there's another heartbeat element in this episode, which I think is really, really good.
Absolutely.
So I think, which we'll come to a bit later, but, I kind of like that sort of jolt back to this moment. She's just seen her mum healing, and you see that in this crash, she's unable to do that to herself because she's been knocked unconscious.
Well, absolutely. There was a moment in that I was wondering whether we'd see Taloa reach over and bring Maya back to life before she died. I thought that was the way they may have gone. But as we mentioned last episode, those are what you would expect to see in these flashbacks. You'd have that moment where our superhero gets created by a big moment in their past, that they may not remember, and it's being brought out here. But, last episode we mentioned that episode really, even though it was called Taloa, was actually about the moment of power that Chula had. This episode here, we're seeing Taloa's power coming out as a healer while Maya was young. Yeah,
for me, the fact that they didn't go down that route, which was the very paint by numbers origin.
Exactly.
It's just like, literally, I was sitting there going, oh, okay, they didn't do it. Oh, maybe it's going to be this like right at the end of the fight, midway through the fight scene at the end or something where there's a big massive moment. It's going to flash back again, and it will turn out that her mother did it, or it will turn out that Maya had this power all along because she tried to heal her mum.
Right.
And type it. Like, I was 100% expecting that. So actually, hats off that they didn't.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of proud. It was the easier route. It would have been the easier route. It was the more cliche route, and they didn't touch it. So I was like, okay, so where are they going with this? So her mum now has healing powers. Is that what's going to additionally move forward through and into Maya, and how are these going to be used in the future to save, like, essentially her people? To say, like, what is this culmination? What are they building towards with this power set, with these people, with the thing? So, it was interesting. Yeah,
it's a great way to open the episode. So you have those questions as you go into the opening credits. Also want to give a huge shout out once again to the subtitles people here, specifically on those heartbeats, as we thought we would be seeing Taloa save Maya, and then it had two heartbeats go into one heartbeat alone, showing the death of Taloa there. I thought that was it's really good, adding extra context with subtitles, which they've done throughout the season, and I think it's on purpose that they're adding the context through subtitles. So you should be watching it that way. That's the optimal way to watch the show, I think. Will we go on to fight point number 2, because it is intrinsically connected to this opening scene, really?
Yeah, Taloa the healer. And I mean, just to give some context here, Maya is on the road and we see Fisk bumping into Chula, and we have Biscuits sort of directing vendor vehicles and all that, realizing Chula has not turned up yet. And so we have Maya coming back to Tamaha. I like the fact that we do get a Roxxon garage in here.
Yes,
I always like I like it when, these random sort of, in a sense, Roxxon's never been a massive organization, but they've, if it's a service station or a gas station, they've always kind of chucked Roxxon on there, the evil corporation.
Mm-hmm. I particularly remember during the Defenders era on Netflix that Roxxon was mentioned very often around that time.
Definitely. So I kind of like that, but we have her coming back to Chula's house to try and save Chula at least. At this moment, I don't think she knows, or they don't think that Bonnie is missing.
The text from Biscuits actually said Chula and Bonnie haven't turned up yet.
Yes, that's true.
A while ago, yeah.
Absolutely. So, she goes in gun cocked into Chula's house, and then it sets up this really great scene with Maya having this visit from her mother, Taloa.
Before we get to her mother, there's one thing I want to call out.
Okay.
Go on.
She throws away the contact lens.
Yes, she does.
Yes, she does.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Why include that? Because essentially you gave her an ability now that Maya could have used going forward, which is that she can essentially just see, she gets a translation of ASL of what people are talking to her. Like, that's just, that's there. It's tech now. She should have just used.
Maybe she's starting to get an irritated cornea, as
She
Dr.
could've.
Bob
She
says
could've,
in the previous
The feedback, maybe.
podcast. Yeah.
It was either that or she didn't want to be tethered to having updates coming into her every week, Maybe she thought it was a tracking device from Kingpin, maybe?
Yeah.
She didn't have the docking station to charge it up
Exactly.
again. So I would just run out of juice, I guess.
No, it's a definite decision to sever herself from this control that Kingpin had over her, effectively. This change in her. I suppose, the connection she talked about with Fisk saying, "You don't even love me enough to learn ASL," and he effectively washed over that with technology. Yeah. I think she's kind of going, well, you know what? If nobody's going to learn ASL, I don't care what they're saying, basically.
Fair.
So
Okay.
I wonder if it was something like that. But I did expect to see Fisk on the other side of that door as Maya walked into the house with her gun. I did not expect to have this visitation from Taloa. I thought that was a really great choice, given that throughout the series, we actually see the ancestors connecting with Maya through these visions. They're not just her seeing bits of their past, she's hearing them call to her. So her mother is actually visiting her here, actually having a discussion with her and talking to her about her ancestors, which I thought was really appropriate for the show. Worked really well for this show.
Absolutely. And even just having the kind of the different elements that these ancestors bring as well that will help her. As Taloa says, you're not alone. And these gifts will echo through her, as they did through her mom and, through her ancestors previously.
Yeah.
And which we've seen in those openings. We saw Loak seeing Shaffer. We saw Tuklo seeing Loak. So, we have Shaffer representing ferocity, Loak strategy, Tuklo cunning, and then Taloa is love, and to bring all these
love and healing
elements together, So this was really great. All that context sort of being provided here as to how they echo through what they bring to Maya.
Yeah, and the way that Taloa says to her, these are your gifts. These are the gifts that you're getting from your ancestors. And importantly, it's also tying back to what has been the creation of Maya as the villainous character, as the henchperson for Kingpin, or as the new Queenpin. It's all stemming from the death of her mother, the pain that caused, the separation that it caused from her family. And Taloa is taking this opportunity to going, you've been lost. You've had this pain being in control of everything that you've been doing for the last 20 odd years since you left Tamaha. Let it go. It's time to put that in the past where it belongs. And you're not alone, even though I'm gone. Your father's gone. Yeah. You've separated from Kingpin. You're not alone. You have your ancestors behind you, and we will always be there with you. I thought that was a really good moment to have her brought back in, I guess, to the fold.
Yeah, definitely.
because this echoes really through the decisions that Maya makes throughout the rest of the episode, the decisions that who she's going to be and how she'll use these powers. So I think it's a really important moment to have this with her mother, talking her away from her pain, and then also revealing her superhero outfit. We were kind of right last week that was being made for her by Chula.
Yeah.
But we have Maya's new outfit, which looks cool.
It does. It's very old school. It is very appropriate to the culture.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't look very bulletproof or anything like that, but I'm assuming certain tailors in New York can probably add some titanium weave to it, and
maybe
it will be fine.
Well, that's it, but and it's the symbolism of it as well, because I think Taloa says how each seam represents sort of the ancestors.
Yeah.
So and it it's what Maya ultimately was when she goes to the powwow there. So I think if we move on to fight point number 3, the powwow showdown.
Yeah. Loved this opening scene as we have the music and we have the entrance of the group coming into the powwow, and Maya's in the center of them all wearing this outfit that she's just been gifted from her ancestors, from her mom, from made by Chula.
It's really cool.
And just as again, the use of sound throughout the series works so well, as you see the sound dropping out from the music that's being played only to the bassline drum, and then you see Maya is aligning with that as she focuses, and it's only at that point that she sees the woodpecker once again, this representation of danger, guiding her to where Chula and Bonnie are being held by Fisk. It's aligning with her ancestors, aligning with her history and her people. Gives her all access to these powers, is what it seems like from
Absolutely.
that scene, and just represented so well.
I loved how it was done, that synchronizing of the heartbeat of Maya's heartbeat with the drum beat, that kind of rhythm, and you see with the stepping that she's doing to the rhythm of the drum as well. I just thought it was like fantastic. And this is to help her actually infiltrate this powwow, because all of Fisk's men are on the lookout for her. And this is where Fisk has decided that, the battleground is going to be here
Zane
in terms of this retribution. Yeah, we've got Zane here, sort of basically ignoring Biscuits around vendor car parking. And, there's a couple of vans filled with heavies and their guns. And at the center of it, this fantastic spectacle of dress, rhythm, music, and the music throughout this, I thought, the ceremonial music, as much as then the likes of Samantha Crane's vocals playing through this episode, was really, really cool. It felt really great to me. It really added again that another underlying sense of emotion to it all. But I like that, you have this introduction to the powwow. And, I'm just going to say it there as well. Powwow. I forgot about this word, powwow. It's one of the few words maybe from Native American language that has been adopted and permeated into sort of at least the English language, because I always remember my dad kind of saying, well, we're going to have a family powwow. It's just really weird, and I had kind of forgotten that, and it's such a great word anyway. Actually, it feels and sounds as to what it is. It's really good.
I really like it. Yeah, it's the community get together effectively, where everybody can come and join and experience the culture as well.
It feels togetherness in the words, Exactly. It's really good.
And one of the things I did really like about it was the way they brought in Zane in his camper van. Because we mentioned earlier on in the season, Zane being a Welshman in North America here, he really seemed like a tourist, not specifically Welsh, but really felt like a tourist arriving at this community event. You see him with the Tamaha, I love Tamaha kind of hat on his head, but again, massively rude because it's Zane telling Biscuits he's going to be barking in the the vendor spot. I don't care what you say to me, kind of thing. Yeah, whatever.
It was
This is where I'm going.
thumbs up as he just drives on to the parking spot.
And he even says he's not going to take part in the powwow. He's not going to be close. He's just going to watch your cultural from afar.
Yeah.
Your cultural day from afar, basically. So I like that as well. But nice little touches.
Yeah. No, I look for this. This was cool. This overall, every aspect of this, from the cultural bit. I remember speaking about something very similar with Miss Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
When we watched Miss Marvel, again, these windows into other cultures that I have absolutely no notion about outside of other Western-based TV shows or films, which usually are somewhat kind of, I'm going to use the term, whitewashed.
Oh, yeah.
Even culturally whitewashed. This seems authentic. This seems like something, if we were to go to Tamaha, we would see this. We would see, and straight at the end of this episode, there is a thank you to the Choctaw Nation in Oklahoma for the support, because obviously they consulted. They obviously were very close on this.
Absolutely.
And so I'm pretty sure the next powwow next year or this year in 2024 is going to be massive in Oklahoma. And actually, on the word powwow, I always thought that was a word you couldn't use. Like I thought it was like
I know what you mean.
I thought it was a word that was used to belittle Native Americans, indigenous people. I did think it was like very much a word like, oh, it's a powwow. Like, so I completely removed it from my lexicon,
right?
Because I always thought it was that, and then I'm like, oh no, it's just like, it's a thing. They use it. Everyone uses it. It is what it is. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, cool. The more you know. The star wipes into this episode.
I always just thought it was two punches from Batman in the 60s series.
Pow.
Pow and whap.
Pow and boff.
No.
Zing. Zing. Yeah, exactly.
But no, it is really cool seeing this. And part of the showdown that's happening here, and it stretches across the day, as you've said, there are the moments of the dancing going on. I like that we see the camera pan across some of the women that are waiting for their performance or waiting for their moment during the day. And again, it's tying in, it is a current culture. It's not people dressing up in ancient gear. They're also people with glittery boots on as part of their outfit for the day. It's showing that it is still a living festival for this community and with this community.
Well, some of the dresses in the traditional style, but using sequins and very modern stuff, in there. And I love the pan, the aerial pan down, and you see the different kind of movements happening, because I think there were two guys very much with the feather headdresses, just doing the spinning and so on. Really, really good.
Very good.
I love the rhythm and the rhythmic nature of this. It was really kind of cool, and sort of that's the circular element with that ceremonial drum in the middle, just doing that beat, and the ceremonial sort of music and chants happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Also love the hype man DJ. It feels like he's probably the MC of this particular event. I wonder if they got the actual guy that does it from Oklahoma.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I wonder if that's who they got, because it seemed really comfortable just shouting out and calling out when big moments were happening. But part of this, I suppose, because we're going to talk about Maya separately in her own point, because that's really the big culmination of the episode. But I do like that Henry and Biscuits both get a moment in this episode to contribute, because they have been so involved in the series, but I like that Biscuits goes off to get himself a monster truck. There is a part of the event itself has a monster truck element, but he goes and steals a monster truck, or takes a monster truck to take out some of Zane's men who are waiting in the trucks.
Well, that's it. And I like how Henry is saying, well, if you got yourself a gun, it's going to be dangerous, because I've got something better. And it's just the monster truck. Very cool.
Was that shadowed anyway in the earlier episode? Was it anyway put, like, was there, because I can't remember it, but then I now in my head I'm like, wait, was that kind of going to be like, because of that scene where we saw him go to the junkyard.
Yeah,
Was there a monster truck in there in the background or something that we just missed?
I think they just mentioned in this episode that there's a monster truck rally that goes on, so he takes one of those. But you're absolutely right. Given what had happened earlier on in the season with the way Maya broke out of the bowling alley by building herself her own weapon from scratch, and the way we had Scully build the leg for Maya, like an A-Team type moment, you'd also probably have Biscuits building his own car from scratch if he had time. But here he just goes, okay, well, I could have used the junkyard, but I have about 10 minutes, so I'm just going to take the keys from the monster truck and drive it over the top of Zane's men. But it's Henry that gets to take out Zane, which I like because of that coming full circle from when Zane came to take back Maya. He didn't think Maya was there, looked at Henry and kind of went, well, that's the prize that everybody wants anyway. This is the guy that escaped from New York, escaped from Kingpin's clutches, as we heard in the conversation between Maya and Henry last episode. He's the one that escaped and got back to Tamaha. So that was going to be Zane's prize, since he couldn't get Maya, or didn't think he could, back in the bowling alley. And here we have Henry taking him out with one shot to the heart.
Yes.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
And also just the look on Zane's face as well.
Yeah.
As he has an RPG. I mean, this is like, everyone at the powwow has no idea what's going on except for Biscuits, Henry, and Maya.
Yeah.
So classic. Oh, the fireworks are started. But I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this. I thought it was an interesting, like you said, a way to bring it all full circle with the death of Zane. But I was kind of hoping he survived.
Really?
I actually enjoyed his character, especially in episode 3.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, he would have been good in Daredevil Born again. As one of Fisk operatives, kind of just as a low life new thing, and you just make him a bit more wacky and crazy as it goes on. Yeah. So the fact he's gone, I'm like, okay, you've just killed another one I was interested in, but it's okay.
Hey, Chris, all I can say is this entire series was built on the premise of Wilson Fisk getting a bullet point blank to the head.
Exactly. Okay, yeah.
And Henry shot this guy from across the way, took him out, stopped the RPG from going, but doesn't necessarily mean that he's dead.
That's true. True. It could literally just be kind of lying there and then arrested as the cops come in.
Yeah, I think you need like a Walking Dead style headshot to be the only way that people are gone.
Henry needs
see the exploded head.
Henry needs to walk over and double tap.
Yeah,
always double tap.
But I guess that's it for the powwow showdown at the beginning of that. Yeah,
I think we can move on to our fight point number 4, the echo of the ancestors here through Maya as she goes to confront Fisk.
And save Chula and Bonnie, really. This is the culmination of the series, really, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I'm going to go negative because I want to end on a positive for this, okay? This went by so quickly. This was a short piece. It felt like 5 minutes. That's all it felt like. Now, I understand it probably all culminated was a bit longer, but it was just for the finale, for the culmination, for the everything. We had a longer fight scene in the roller rink.
Yes, we did, yeah.
And I was just like, I was expecting a bit more of it, now that she was fully powered, if you want to call it that. Like, she had, and also the bit, she shared her powers.
Oh, yes.
I was expecting, like, add in another 20 men, 10 men, whatever, maybe a bit more, because we had all the men in the vans.
Exactly.
But I was expecting like another van or something of men just coming in and then giving us a bit more, I want to say razzmatazz.
Okay.
Kind of, a bit more finale, a bit more just, I know this is like the street level.
Yeah.
But and I understand it's not trying to be that over the top cinematic battles to end all battles.
Yeah.
But I just expected a bit more.
Because that's criticism that the MCU gets all the time, and even did themselves in She-Hulk, that we get to the final episode, so all it's going to be is your main character punching people in the face for 60 minutes, right?
Exactly.
So they didn't do that. And the choice makes sense because it's to do with the theme of the entire series here.
I agree. And look, the criticism was I just wanted more, a few more minutes of it. That being said, what we got was fantastic. This confrontation between Maya and Fisk and how it is resolved, and that way, I was like perfectly thematically for this show.
Yeah.
The echoing of ages, the bloodline, the empowerment of this generation of women, different generations of women. Well, actually, Bonnie and Maya are the same, but you understand. It's just that kind of the piece, and then how and what it ends with. Yeah. In terms of is the interesting piece. Very much. And there's a bit of punchy in there, so it's great. But I wanted more punchy. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I loved this. I loved how it was shot as well. How it was put together. There's that scene where you see each of her ancestors sitting in Maya's position just after she's taken that punch. Each of them there, all forming together, and then separating out to be standing right by her side, exactly as Taloa had said to her, that she was not alone. She is surrounded by ancestors. I thought it was just so excellently executed.
Yeah, it was really good. I loved that too. Just having that representation was so good, of seeing them sort of in place where Maya is and then separated out. I love that Chula and Bonnie get to sort of kick ass on their captors as well. And I like that ultimately, there's the fights and so on, but I like that as Fisk decides or needs to get in to sort of the action to control Maya, because you see all his men are being taken down. I love the fact that with his arms raised, it's Maya going in with the symbol that her mum uses to heal, in order to sort of make Fisk confront his own demons.
Absolutely.
Which was really good. I just thought it was different. Again, it's the upending of the expectations, because, you've heard from Chula's house, these different elements around ferocity, strategy, cunning, all this. And in the end, it's healing and, in a sense, love that Maya is using here. Yeah. She's used the ferocity, the strategy and the cunning in terms of to get to this moment, to infiltrate into the powwow, to get to the barn, all this. And I like that, all these gifts are being used in this moment.
Yeah, and calling back to that initial moment at the beginning of the episode where her mother tells her we don't harm living things, and part of the power that she has is this power of love and healing. So to use it that way was really cool. To see Fisk coming at her with his full force and her able to stop him using that healing that healing way just worked so well for the themes for me. I do have a theory as well, as she passes the power to Chula and to Bonnie, because Chula, we heard, is one of the ancestors that this power has passed through, right? So she already has it. She's tapping into it there with the help of Maya. But we didn't see that with Bonnie. Bonnie's a cousin. She's not direct bloodline back to Chafa, as we heard Maya is. But we did talk about the fact that Devery Jacobs played Kehori in What If. I wonder if she has the connection back through her bloodline.
Oh, maybe.
Separately to Kehori.
Yeah, possibly.
It's a possibility, isn't it?
Oh, that could be one way of doing it. I took it in that, because it was basically Bonnie's mother is Maya's mother's sister.
Yeah.
There's still a connection to that bloodline. It's still all the way. So it's just the women on it. But again,
I'm just trying to give them an out to write a Kehori series with Bonnie starring in it.
Or it just turns out Kehori's daughter went on to marry someone in the Choctaw Nation, and that's how you bleed them together.
Maybe it's that.
Yeah, because it's as well, Kehori is much later, around the Spanish sort of invasion of the Americas. So
she's 1800s, and she's in a different nation of the Native Americans. Yeah,
I think going into Maya trying to sort of connect Fisk back to his pain and trauma. I guess there's a little bit more sort of background around that. You have the wall that you saw in Daredevil season 1 with, and hearing the sounds of his mother being beaten by his father and that trauma. So, a bit like you were saying, Chris, that, not having that context, a little bit more leaking in, not entirely, 7 or 8 episodes of a season, but it's just referencing those touch points to Fisk's, I guess, origin story in a sense.
Exactly. Rabbit in a Snowstorm.
Yeah, which is kind of quite good.
As the wall was called, Rabbit in a Snowstorm, where he's watching that white wall with the flecks on it while his mum and dad are having that fight outside, which did lead to Fisk murdering his father. So she takes him all the way back to that moment in time to do what her mother did for her, try and heal the pain, try and heal this pivotal moment in his life, not having to be the only thing that has power over Fisk, right? So she's kind of taken away that connection, or trying to take away that connection in the moment here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, it's the other, string to the guitar, I guess, of Maya. I think the other interesting thing here, before that power of the ancestors flowing through Maya, is Fisk does admit to killing her father here as well. And you have, from Maya, following the vision of her mum saying, I'm their legacy and a part of them. I'm not your legacy.
Exactly.
So it's like really, she's kind of made that choice here. And I kind of really like the idea that in the same way of what echoes through Maya's life, she is effect through this healing, trying to see what has echoed through Fisk's life to make him who he is as well.
Exactly,
so it's a really good use of this kind of motif, really.
Yeah, it's massive as well. And, we talked about the offer last week from Fisk to say, come back to New York, you become the queen pin. She turned him down, and now it's, I'm going to murder all of your family. I can see how close you are with the family. You've shown me that. You've told me that. Now I know how much pain I'm going to cause you when I murder them all. It's the brutality of Fisk. We've seen that right back to, as we talked about, the rabbit in the headlights, the murdering of his father. We've seen his brutality when he switches to full, brutal, killing nature. And that's what's happened with Maya. She has made that choice. She's said to him, I'm not going to do what you want me to do. And that's not something you say to Wilson Fisk. And his choice is violence.
Yeah. And what does she heal? This is the question. I was like, what did she do to him? What does she take or heal or take away? Because I can guess, but it's not specifically called out.
I think, the reaction from Fisk is, what did you do to me? Yeah, exactly. But what's happening here is, as I say, exactly what Taloa did for Maya. The death of her mother is the connection that Maya has to her past and has led her into the position that she's in, the pain that she felt, the separation from her family, all of those things that led Maya to lead the life that she did, working for Kingpin, thinking it's okay to harm other living things. All of that came from the pain she had from losing Taloa. Taloa used that power, healed Maya, separated her from that. It is something that happened, absolutely, but it can't define the rest of your life, is basically the point from what happened with Taloa. And now Maya's doing the same. She's paying it forward. She's passing that on to Fisk. Yes, a massively painful moment in your life. Your father was beating your mother. You killed him. You took that power and killed him. But that shouldn't be the defining point for your entire life. So she's taken away, or at least helped to heal that wound that has defined Fisk's life for its entirety. And the only connection that's similar to this is in the comic books. This is how Fisk becomes mayor. This is the storyline of Devil's Reign, where, in the comics anyway, the children of Kilgrave, which was one of the characters who could bend people's mind, the children of Kilgrave were used by Daredevil to take away Wilson Fisk's knowledge of his past violent crimes, making him think that he is a good person and making him run for mayor of New York. So there is a comic book connection to the fact that Maya's gone in there, messed with his past, and effectively maybe cured him and healed him of that past history.
Yeah, I'd be interesting to see, because I want to know, because that kill, that brutality is what made Fisk Fisk. And Yeah, it's interesting to see that we know he isn't born again, the Daredevil. So is it a different Fisk now? You know what I mean? Is it Fisk born again? He's no longer actually the bad guy. Matt Murdock is going after him, kind of going, "You're a kingpin." He's like, no, I'm reformed. I'm good, type of thing. Is it going to be interesting to see?
Absolutely.
It may not have gone that deep, I guess. Yeah. It could just be more that, this has put a wedge in the door for Fisk, and maybe, I think with our 5.5 around Fisk for Mer, I think it's, he's looking at that news story just in a different way. I think what is happening here is that power of healing, but it's not necessarily saying it's instant in this case, like with Kilgrave, which is almost a blocking. This is saying, this is Maya saying you need to confront what you've done, and that's what she's making him relive it, confront it, and as she says, this can't then define you. Exactly. You have to move on. So I think it's not as such that he is a changed man in the same way that in Devil's Reign it happened. I think this is saying that a seed has been planted here in the same way that we've seen through the whole of this season for Echo, with the visions sporadically coming to her. There's an evolution to it, and maybe that's what ultimately is a way for Daredevil Born Again, in terms of that role that Fisk plays and how that story will unfold. But I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Like, I absolutely love Vincent D'Onofrio in the role of Wilson Fisk, but, we've seen it for 3 seasons, and now for Echo and for Hawkeye, we've seen him. He's the bad guy. Go beat him up. Go kill him. He's the leader. So a change to his character might be quite interesting to explore. He's a fantastic actor, very versatile. So having a change in his character for the next time we see him, and the impact that has on everybody that just assumes he's the bad guy, right? We saw a little bit of that in Daredevil season 3, but he was pretending in that season. But the idea that he may have changed, and this encounter with Echo has had that massive impact on his life, I think would be really interesting.
Yeah, and it's that classic thing that we've seen in the comics, like with Lex Luthor in DC World, what happens if he becomes president, and Norman Osborn as well, where they get into positions of democratically elected power and what that happens. Dare I say it, we're seeing it with Trump, so it might be along that analogy that they play it, and who knows, he might actually be in there.
I hope Maya would heal whatever pain is causing that before he gets into a position of power again.
Well, I didn't want to take it down that line.
But it is a really interesting concept to take it this way. And again, it turns comic book origin stories on its head in a way, I think. I think this is a really, really important message in its own way. There's lots of people, pretty much everybody has something in their past that could have defined them and set them up in a way for the rest of their life. You can say I was born into poverty. That has had an impact on me, and that can make you make choices to go down a path of criminality, or to go down a path of making sure that your whole family are taken care of in the future by whatever path you choose to go down. But that can't be the only thing that defines you for your entire life. And a lot of people who have really bad moments in their life choose that to define them. And what we're saying here, this is what happens in comic books all the time. They go, well, this character was created in 1963 when this moment happened to them. And then for the next 70 years, they act as exactly the same character over and over again. And what's happening here with Maya is going, it doesn't have to be that way. Yeah. She's calling out, and the show is calling out, you can overcome trauma. You can overcome your past. Get a bit of help. Get a family around you, get people to take care of you, get people to work it through with you, and you may be able to overcome that. Here it's a magical power that she's severed that link for Fisk, or at least started to sever that link to that one defining moment that has led him into this massive life of violence. But I think it's a really interesting exploration of that in a really short moment, really interesting idea. It sparks, at least in me, thoughts for the discussion about the impact of Echo as a show.
Yeah, and we see with her own pain that Maya is further down that healing journey in the way that then, she goes to Chula's house to connect back with her family.
Yeah, absolutely.
That she's not seen in 20 years.
Pretty much, yeah.
They do set it up to make it look like she is leaving. Like and I was like, I was like, oh, okay. So they're just going to have her as this kind of wandering, and then she stops off. And I'm like, oh, okay, so she's staying. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the other big question that it sparked in me this moment and the ending of this episode is there anything else for Maya, the character, to do in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Because what has effectively led to these powers and what we've learned from Chula and everything that we have here is that she is now the protector of the Choctaw Nation.
Yeah.
She's the protector of her people. So unless they do, I don't know, Home Alone 2, the Choctaw Nation go on a trip to New York, and then she's the protector of them from Fisk's men who attack them when they're in New York. It seems that her powers are ancestral and to do with the people that are around her, the family that are around her, that she will protect the family and then will use the violence, because if she's not doing that, then she's on the dark side. Then she's on the side of Fisk. She's fighting and killing people that aren't attacking her family, attacking her Choctaw Nation.
But
so,
I think it's more than just that, because I think it's also about what she brings to the powers or the power set that is echoed through of ferocity, strategy, cunning, and love. So what is Maya bringing to that that then other people and, the future generations will be able to tap into? Because we've seen that all these people tapping into it along the timeline that's been presented here. So it is about that, but I think it's a collective thing. This is about other people then being able to draw upon it.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't mean to say that she now has to reside in Tamaha, I don't think, which I think is the important thing. And in fairness, like you say, it does look like she's leaving. And it could be that she's just stopping off. We don't. Yeah. I mean, we just don't know.
I feel like that's her returning to her family. I feel like she's got everything with her because she was going to leave. Remember, before she went to the powwow, she had everything with her. But I think that's her reconnecting with her family.
Yeah, exactly.
That's her not saying I'm leaving tomorrow. That's her saying I'm coming back and staying here because now I feel part of the community. Yeah, I feel part of the generations. I feel part of this family.
Yeah. I think the important thing is they left it open-ended.
Yes, exactly.
They did not fully set and say, that's the end of Echo. Echo will not return in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes,
because they didn't say one way or the other, because to be fair, usually when they have a definitive plan, we'll call it definitive loosely, they do put the bumper at the end. Echo will return. Hawkeye will return. Blah, blah, blah will return. Miss Marvel will return. Like that, they will say those words on a black screen with white text. That's usually what they do.
Yeah.
They didn't on this, but they also left it somewhat they didn't say like she's no longer has her powers. They haven't done anything like that. So in the new Avengers film, we probably will see Maya there, probably as a background character fighting in the big battle at the end.
Maybe.
Potentially. That's one thing. Or the next street level build up when they have Iron Fist and Daredevil and blah blah Hawkeye and everyone's back. They could potentially bring her back.
Yeah.
When they need to, they have that character available to them.
Yeah.
I found it interesting that they didn't directly say. Because I'm like, interesting. So you don't have a definitive plan with this character. So like this seems more now to me like Werewolf by Night and Man-Thing, which is they now have these reserved characters from these special presentations from the premiere, kind of that they can dip into and pull when they really want to. And if it's big enough, it's such a draw, they may expand upon it. But they didn't. And I think this is, again, just going to be a wait and see.
Yeah, it was a massive risk for Disney Plus to do a TVMA show, right? That's the big risk here. Way before Daredevil's coming out, they haven't done one since the Netflix shows, and those were ported over after most fans had watched them on Netflix, right? So they can't test the waters unless they do a TVMA show, and all of their movies have been general audience PG movies. So bringing in the character of Echo or committing to bringing her into the wider Marvel universe when most of their audience wouldn't have been able to see who the character was before, that's a big commitment for them to do. So I'm glad to hear it seems the ratings have been really good. Overall, the viewership has been really good, at least, if not specifically the usual kind of ratings that Marvel get for everything. It's pretty pretty average in there. It's pretty standard in there from the kind of ratings that Marvel get for anything they put out there. But the viewership has been reasonably high, and there are conversations about bringing the character back in future, but they couldn't have committed to it because they were testing something brand new here with the violence level for Disney Plus. So,
but speaking of bringing back existing characters, let's move briefly to our 5.5, which we've kind of already kind of discussed to some degree, but that is Fisk for mayor.
Yeah.
Because, the likelihood that here, sort of drawing off the Devil's Reign arc and leading into Daredevil Born again.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a massive storyline in the comic books at the time. One of those really surprising ones because front covers of comic books had Fisk for mayor written on them, showing that Wilson Fisk became mayor of New York. Quite a big comic book arc. So interesting to see it coming in at the end of the episode in this post-credit scene. And again, it's interesting that it's almost inspired by Echo. So there will be this lasting impact from this show leading into Daredevil Born Again. And it's, again, as I mentioned earlier on, it is similar to the arc in season 3 of Daredevil, where everybody thought that maybe Wilson Fisk had turned over a new leaf and become a good guy, right?
Yeah.
So it's all connected in that way to this story going forward.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see where they go with this, because for me, they are building what I can only assume is going to be the Marvel Netflix kind of mini universe, in that it's that more mature aspects. It's these showcases. It's these ones that are for your adults and are going to be just more kind of bit more violent, bit more mature themes. And it will be its own pocket universe. I want to say pocket because just they'll sprinkle in these characters later into the other movies and shows, but not as much. What you don't want is the kids, the young'uns going, "Oh, I want to know about Fisk. What's that hammer there for?" Like, they're going to try and separate, they're going to try and do as much of, and this is actually apt for Daredevil, a separation between church and state. They're going to try.
Maybe. It gives them options, I suppose. That's the big point, Their shows can't aim at everybody over 35 to watch them. They have to have a wide audience for most of the major productions that they do. But it's great that they have these kind of side projects that can aim at a smaller audience. Great stuff. I only have one note from the episode. Just interesting that we saw Bonnie at the end of the episode with her hair braided like Tuklo as a Choctaw warrior as well. I thought that was quite interesting that you see her with her changed hairstyle. It's the one big shame, though, for me about the season of Echo, the one big drawback, not having Deborah Jacobs on screen more. Bonnie's supposed to be a massively important character to Maya, and I felt that she wasn't on screen enough to show the importance. Chula certainly was. You could absolutely see that connecting moment, but you felt like there was only, that one scene in the roller rink, and then the conversation afterwards with Bonnie saying, "I'll take care of you, I promise." And then she feels like she's been out of the season. I just wonder if it was something to do with the filming on the last season of Reservation Dogs that meant that Deborah Jacobs couldn't commit to being in the role more.
Maybe.
But it felt like she just wasn't present in the season enough to make it as important at the end. But I do wonder, because she got the power from Maya and she has her braided hair at the end, has she now seen the visions of the ancestors, and will the two of them fight side by side in the future?
Possibly.
At some point, Maybe even if my theory of Kihori coming into live action is incorrect, maybe that's a possibility in the future that two of them will fight side by side.
Yeah, absolutely. The only note I've got is possibly the spark between Chula and Scully is back there after the sewing machine scene in the pawn shop. I kind of like that little moment. I think these two characters have been really sort of well used, and just that the gravitas that they bring, as well as, some elements of the lightheartedness, certainly from Scully. So I like that there was a promise by Chula that she would see Scully soon.
Well, at least come back and visit him occasionally. Yeah, like that. I like that. Just one thing on the discussion that's going on the TV. Just the reference that's in there that they make, where they say, what voters really want right now in New York is a bare knuckle boxer. I just thought that was interesting because Matt Murdock's father, of course, being a boxer, and Matt Murdock being a good fighter as well. So maybe it's Fisk versus Matt Murdock for the role of Mayor of New York. See, not just a law procedural type show. We're going to have a battle for office in New York
again.
Yeah, there you go. Any other notes, Chris?
Nope, nothing from my side.
Excellent. Well then, in which case, Chris, do you defend episode 5 of Echo?
Yes, I do. As I said, like there was that small brief negative, if you want to call it that. It's just basically, I wanted more of a fight scene. I wanted more of a kind of kicky, punchy aspect, as well as the ending that we got. I feel it was apt. It was fitting. It just wanted a bit more kind of action to it. This was one of the shorter episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So it just feels like you were tied to a time, which we know they don't in the Disney Plus. So an extra couple of minutes of just Bonnie kicking ass, Chula kicking ass. It would have been great to see. That's all. That's it. That's my major negative. And then it's just outside of Fisk and that teaser we get. We don't know much more about what's going to happen to the character of Echo and these characters that we've been introduced to, and this nation and culture, which I want more of.
Mm-hmm.
So we got, say, the Miss Marvels. We got that furthered on in the Marvels. So I would love something similar. I would love to see more of Echo in future projects, just to see how it kind of turns out. But overall, really enjoyed it, and overall, great.
Excellent stuff. Derek, do you defend this episode?
Yeah, I absolutely defend this episode. I thought this was a really interesting and really good end to the show, the way it was presented. I wasn't expecting it. I think exactly as you said, Chris, you know, the show had been advertised, I suppose, as the show that takes over from Netflix. Daredevil takes over from the Netflix shows. It is ultra violent. They've got the fight scenes as good as the Netflix shows. So I guess you almost lay up the show that it's going to be a showdown at the end of the season between Wilson Fisk's men and Maya, and she's going to be fighting all her way through them to get there. But it did exactly what the show has been telling us it was going to do. She learns from her history. She learns from her ancestors. She learns a way to properly embody them as her power to take out Fisk. And the choice that they made here, that it would be with love and with healing, that is your way to really defeat Wilson Fisk, rather than what she already did, which was put a bullet in his head. You know, she's already tried that. It didn't work. So why would she try it again? That's the essence of madness, isn't it? So to make that choice and to build it up the way that they did, I think worked really, really well. I think the performances throughout the series have been great. The insight into the Choctaw Nation has been really fascinating throughout the series, and ending it in this massive powwow was really, really good. And yeah, I'm very impressed with what they delivered in this series. I don't see a way forward for Echo as a character, but hey, I'm not a writer at Marvel, so let's see how they use Maya Lopez in the future. She absolutely could just turn up in New York in the future, but I see this as being a way of bringing her back to her roots and giving her a good ending, a positive, happy ending almost, as she gets back and reconnects with her family that she's been missing for so many years. So I liked that as the closeout to the story of Echo that we've seen over these 2 seasons, I suppose, with Hawkeye and with this show now. So happy to see her again, though. She was fantastic. I'd love to see more of the character in some way in the future. So, but really good. How about yourself, John? Do you defend the finale of Echo, episode 5, Maya?
Yeah, I do defend this episode. I'd give it 4 RPG fireworks out of 5. I did think it was short, I have to say. And, you know, dare I say it, rushed. I mean, I think there is the suggestion that there was a 6th episode there. So I think, you know, some of these deep moments, I think, could have been sort of just given space to air and breathe a bit more. Possibly that would include more with Bonnie, you know, and so on. But nonetheless, I really enjoyed it. I loved, I thought the heartbeat element through here, like getting the information around Taloa, and how that fed into, effectively the echoes are of Maya's life coming through from her ancestors to Fisk's echoes from his childhood trauma, from the beatings at the hands of his father, and him, the abuse towards his mother and him killing his father. So I love that kind of parallel that brought through here. And everything that you guys have said as well, I think, and, the intriguing element of what's coming up with, Daredevil Born Again and, the possibility of Fisk for mayor. But I have and do, hold out hope that we have Echo in that show. So I really hope that they do. I think that would be really intriguing, certainly as we saw Daredevil and Echo meet, in episode 1 of this season. So I liked how this sort of brought everything, together, at the end. And, so I'd give this 4 RPG fireworks out of 5. Yeah.
Very good. Hey, John, I think it's time to go to the pub.
Beer.
Well, kind of. Last time for the pub quiz or the bar quiz for Echo. John.
Not only beer, but also fellow quizzers and, of course, fellow defenders. Yes, welcome to the American bar quiz. It is question 5 of the Echo series, and relates to episode 5 if you're newly joining us. Question 5. Who does Biscuits tell Zane is looking after general parking?
Very good. Very good.
Loved this.
Yeah, good little gag in there. And nice to end on a gag with our final question for the Echo pub quiz. So all you need to do is get together all the answers for all the questions. Email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com with each of the correct answers, and you'll be in with a chance of getting your hands on some Echo goodies. If you've missed any of the questions throughout the season, you can just pop on over to the website at tvpodcastindustries.com and all the questions will be up there too. John, do you want to give them the question one more time?
Absolutely. Question 5. Who does Biscuits tell Zane is looking after general parking?
Excellent. Best of luck. We'll be announcing the winner of the Echo American Bar Quiz on our wrap-up episode for Echo. The making of Echo is now available on Disney Plus right now. Go watch that. We'll be talking about that on the final episode as well.
Excellent stuff. Good luck, fellow quizzers and defenders, in the Echo quiz.
Exactly. Hope you had a bit of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. Will we see what our fellow defenders had to say about the finale?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yes, first up, we got an email through from Coffee and Vodka. It says, "Greetings, fellow foul-warned forearmed defenders. If ever the editor had some place to be, it was during the processing of this episode. Approximately 27 minutes of story sandwiched between opening and closing credits. Despite the general time disservice, Echo's story was wrapped up well. The modern-day Light Riders worked well together, and the bird brought a tender tear to the eye. End of the day, not out-of-the-park home run I'd thought it would be, but a good tale with a few brilliant scenes. 2.5 inexplicable monster trucks, maternal Voltrons, and Trumpy Kingpins out of 5 for the season. 4 echoes out of 5. Peace and take care. Coffee and Vodka."
Very good, Coffee and Vodka.
Yeah, thanks so much, Coffee and Vodka. It's I think it's certainly short, and I think, it could have been really good just being at that hour mark, possibly. It would just be building, layering up, I think, what we saw in this episode. But
sounds repetitious.
It could have been a longer fight scene, more sort of punches for Chris. It could have been, more of the powwow, and seeing that ceremony take place. More,
could have been 10 minutes of Biscuits trying to find the keys for that monster truck.
Well, exactly.
Where did I put the keys?
Could have been a whole host of things. But I mean, just it filtering through, as I say, we do know there is a lost episode of, well, that's
Echo.
Echo. That's how Doctor Who always puts it.
Except
the lost episode of such and such. Oh, we found it.
It wasn't produced. They was originally commissioned for 6, and they made 5. So it's not that there's a lost episode. They made 5 episodes. I don't know. I get it. I understand the complaint that the episode might feel short, but I think it had the story that it had to tell. And the biggest complaint people used to have when we watched the 13 episodes of Daredevil, it was always like, oh, there's 3 episodes too many here. Oh, I wish it was 8 episodes. And then they make 8, and they go, oh, I wish it it was 5 episodes. And then they make 5 and it's like, oh, I wish it was 7 episodes. So, you know, if it didn't jibe, I totally get it. If the story of the series didn't jibe, I absolutely get it. But if they made the show that they wanted to make within the 5 episodes, and I hope they did, I think it connected quite well with me. I'm sure there's other things that they could have done within the series. And I think the one thing that absolutely is missing is Bonnie's character. That felt like they may have cut that storyline out of the series. That may have formed a majority of the extra episode that they may have gotten if they'd done 6. And I do feel it suffers for not seeing the actress Deborah Jacobs, or not seeing the character of Bonnie. But that's just my opinion, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it comes through from the for the season though as well. You know, it's a really good story.
Absolutely. Thanks, Coffee Vodka.
Yeah, thanks so much, Coffee and Vodka.
Over on Twitter, we got feedback from Matt Murdoch, who had this to say: I really enjoyed Echo. Hats off to Porter for scoring music, making already big emotion feel even bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Surprising and amazing set of climaxes for the finish, and an insightful post-credit scene. Felt very Netflix Marvel, as it probably should. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I think we kind of talked about the music, like even in the last episode, how it kind of really just set the tone in a lot of the show, and it was well chosen for each episode.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, last episode where you did have Down in the River, which we saw how that was delivered. So yeah, no, overall agree that the music is really well done.
Yeah, absolutely. Some really good choices from the music supervisor. Some great moments in this episode, particularly in the finale, as we talked about earlier on. Thanks so much, Matt, for your feedback.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Over on Threads. Yeah, we got some feedback on Threads. It's moving. It's Johnny Million says, we finished this a few days ago. What a delightful series. I'm all for Marvel shining spotlights on more diverse perspectives. Love it. That's why it's called Marvel Spotlight.
Exactly. That was the term I couldn't think of. I was saying showcase and everything. It's spotlight.
Yeah. Marvel Spotlight. Yeah, makes sense. No, I totally agree with Johnny. It's a really good show. Really enjoyed having something completely different for the MCU. This is what we've said before. You can't put out the same content every time you do a movie or a TV show. It should at least target a specific audience with an idea and tell a good story for that audience. So, and I think they did a good job with that.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Thanks, Johnny Million.
Over on Facebook, Dan Lee says, like most of the Marvel stuff for the last few years, this felt a bit of a mess to me. I missed the days of being excited to see that title card and hear that iconic music. That's a shame that it didn't connect with you, Dan, for this series. It's interesting, isn't it, that Marvel are no longer using the same music as their intro. We're not hearing the Marvel logo music as they had for the MCU movies, or it's changing quite often.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
And this is probably one of the first series, I think, if I'm right, this is one of the first series that used a piece of music from a recognizable artist, I suppose. So the Yeah is doing the theme tune for this show, rather than it being the composer doing a theme for Echo. Yeah. So this really does stand alone and separate from a lot of the other shows, doesn't it?
Definitely.
But let's see if the Marvel music playing before Madam Web next month gets you interested, Dan. I suspect not. I suspect
that's
it won't.
so going to be online within about 5 weeks less.
Yeah.
They're going to release that.
Will it though? Or will it just disappear? At least we're going to actually get to see it, unlike what HBO has been doing with their DC content.
That is true. Yeah. That is true. Thanks so much, Dan, for the feedback. Also on Facebook, we had Jeff Childs, who says, wow, I really enjoyed that. Here are my random thoughts about the series. Great fight choreography. The Cox versus Cox fight, really good, and it whet my appetite for more Daredevil.
Mm-hmm.
Casting Alakwa Cox's cousin to play young Maya was great casting. They look like they could be the same person.
Absolutely.
It's hard to believe that this is the first role for each of them. They did an outstanding job. Kingpin may be the best villain in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
I have to admit that I got misty during the last episode when Maya encountered her mother, then later stood with her ancestors. Mm-hmm. I loved it. While I loved the series, 5 episodes felt rushed. Another episode or 2 would have helped with that. I enjoyed seeing Maya's hero journey from villain to hero. It sort of reminds me of Black Widow going from Soviet agent to Avenger. Now that she has her superhero suit, I hope we see more of her in the MCU. Yes, Derek, so do I. I hope she's in. Derek is ready to sort of retire her off to Tamaha, whereas I'm totally with you there, Jeff, that I hope we see her sort of in Daredevil Born again. Let's just face it. Just a little Sante back to New York City.
Yeah, all I'm saying is, and all it would take is, a Ravager appearing outside Tamaha, causing some kind of problems for the Choctaw Nation. And that brings Echo back into the universe. That's all it is. It's just the fact they leave it with her being the protector of the nation. So there are absolutely ways to do it. As I say, Echo 2, Lost in New York, is coming soon. Thanks so much, of course, Jeff, for your thoughts, though, as well. I love the catch there on the fight between Cox versus Cox. So it's Charlie Cox versus Alacra Cox. So I didn't even think about that.
Yes, two Coxes head to head.
Exactly. Cox fighting, if you will.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thanks, Jeff. And yeah, no, I do agree. I see the similarities with the Black Widow versus kind of Echo, the similarities that they do have inside of the Soviet versus kind of
that's a nice
redneck
touch.
Tamaha. Yeah. But overall, like, really glad that you enjoyed it as much. And I think a lot of people do feel that they could have done with one more, but some people are quite happy with the others. So I suppose it's just a fair mix.
But have enjoyed what they've gotten. So
yes.
It's just, I think it's because people have enjoyed it. It's almost like they want more.
Exactly.
So, it's the same when the Marvel Netflix shows came to an end. It was like all of a sudden after time, it's like, oh yeah, I want a bit more of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, great stuff. Thanks, Jeff. We also have some feedback in from Felipe Florencio. Philippe says, I really enjoyed the series. I found the portrayal of Native Americans respectful, even though I'm not from that community. Maya and her family in Tamaha were highlights for me. However, the series felt rushed, especially because it seems they combined Chula's and Taloa's episodes. It would have been nice if they had had more room to breathe and to be with these characters. Maya's relationship with Bonnie also seemed underdeveloped. In the end, the inclusion of Kingpin, Daredevil, and the series' darker tone, along with the exciting casting and crew news, make me optimistic for Daredevil Born again. Good stuff, Felipe. Yeah, I think they are really valid points around Chula and Taloa's episode, and indeed, as you say, about Bonnie. I think that was something we'd sort of picked out as well. Seemed like it didn't develop almost in the same way that Henry's, relationship with Maya as her uncle.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it would have been nice to have seen that develop a bit better. Yeah.
I think because she's so central to the final episode as well, with Bonnie being saved by Maya, that you would have expected to see more of her during the series. So, it seemed like there was some reason why a major storyline was cut out there. You saw from the first episode onwards and didn't seem to get many scenes throughout the season. Perhaps that might have been what formed that extra episode if they got in the 6th episode. But,
definitely.
But yeah, I'm glad to see you enjoyed the episode or the series.
Absolutely,
overall.
yeah, and completely with you. I love the portrayal of the Native American community, nations, the culture, and so on. I think it really just so interesting and great to see that put into different stories like this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, Felipe.
Absolutely. Thanks, Felipe. Dr. Bob Phillips says 5 out of 5 binned contact lenses for this episode. Just about everything this time worked for me. The full ASL rather than science-supported American conversation between Taloa and Maya, the crinkly love story, the phalanx of history, the beauty of Echo's suit, the gift of healing from a traumatic childhood, Monster Biscuit, and Grandma going full-on Groot as she battered the baddies. I do hope we see more of Maya and explore her and Bonnie a bit deeper. Tempted to watch with the audio mute next time, though. I suspect it'll be one of those few shows where it could be as good as with sound. Yeah, that's a really good point. And as I said throughout the podcast, we always watch these shows with subtitles, and there's definitely some nods in the subtitles for just kind of a little bit more detail behind what's happening, because they do a bit of description of what's going on, or just little lines that are said and give a little more clarity. So
definitely, I think part of that would be the importance of the heartbeat in at least a couple of the episodes here with Echo, that, it just makes it a bit clearer.
Yeah.
Just added that bit more, with than having the subtitles off, really.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
exactly.
Very good.
Yeah, great stuff. And speaking of making things clearer, I was actually going to put this into the main podcast. When I was listening back on our edit, I realized we missed a major thing that happened in the episode, and we joked about it earlier on in the podcast. We are recording this a little bit later. Chris isn't here, as you can probably tell. But we had completely missed the fact that Biscuit has transformed Chula's truck into a monster truck. Yeah. That's what he'd done with the stuff that he got from the junkyard.
Absolutely.
It's only on screen for a split second.
It's on screen for a split second, and it's just, I think, to Felipe's point, it's something that there's a bit of a leap of faith here that you're borrowing your grandmother's truck. Yeah. You damage it and you don't repair it back to how it was, but instead go for a monster truck, because it was like this was her work van.
Well, yeah.
Or work pickup, or like...
Yeah, because she's delivering posts from a different car, wasn't it? Another broken down car. Yeah,
so I was kind of like, it's not that you would drive a monster truck around. So it just feels a little bit difficult to sort of immediately just absorb that without having seen it sort of explained. You know, I mean, the whole scene where Biscuit's friend says, anything the sun touches is yours. You kind of go, Gran, that means he can repair the car, not create a monster truck.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought was happening. Yeah. It's an odd one, isn't it? And the fact they didn't dwell on
it. But don't get it.
But the fact that we missed it as well, I was quite surprised that we'd missed that that's what he'd done. But it does seem like a weird choice from Biscuits. So they're kind of cutting out the storyline and having him just drive a monster truck made us think that he'd just stolen a monster truck.
Yeah, but that's it. I don't even think we'd missed it. It had not been signposted particularly well that Biscuits had created a monster truck out of his grand's pickup truck.
Exactly.
And given the powwow where the different things going on, I kind of just assumed part of it was a monster truck demonstration, or where they, crush other smaller, lesser cars with the monster truck. And so that he had just kind of said, look, I need to borrow this or something.
Exactly. Or just hopped into a monster truck to take one. Yeah, exactly. But it's only when you look at it, if you pause it for a second, you see the color scheme of Chula's truck underneath it. It's still the same.
Okay.
The same dark brown and light brown color scheme. So we missed that. And you'll probably have heard that earlier on in the episode and be shouting at your podcast going, what the hell are they talking about stealing monster truck?
But yeah, good stuff. Yeah. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Dr. Bob.
Yeah, thank you. And finally, Harvey Locust says, wow, what a fun and interesting show. I was so glad she threw away the contact lenses, which she should have done right after she'd done talking to Fisk. I mean, if there is enough technology in it to do what it did, it would obviously have a tracking device in it as well.
True.
The fact that they made arms and hands to do ASL was silly. Why not just have text? It's not like she can't read. At the end of the last episode, I was still hoping for her to be a baddie at the end of the series. What they did in the intro of Mum's healing power and the way they closed it with all the ancestors standing behind her had me change my mind. When she shared her powers with her family members, I couldn't help but cheer. The look on Chula's face was priceless. Same with Zane's face when he caught the eye of Henry. The only thing, in my opinion, that could have made this better is if they didn't need Kingpin for the Daredevil series. I thought Daredevil was the worst of the Netflix Marvel shows, with the exception of Karen Page, James Wesley scene. As far as tying it into the Netflix shows, I think they did a good job with the intro music. I don't remember if Turk died, but it would have been fun to see him too. All in all, I give the show 4.95 out of 5 modified monster trucks. Excellent stuff there, Harvey. Thank you for that. Really good to get the old out of 5 from you there. And glad you enjoyed this series as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's a good point about the ASL hands, that you could have just done subtitles below someone that's talking, couldn't you?
Yeah, which would have made more sense.
But he was creating the technology. It's like that old story about, we want to be able to write in space. So NASA spent millions creating a pen to write in space, and then the Russians, used a pencil.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the old story. But, he wanted to show off that he wasn't going to learn ASL, but he could create technology that gave him ASL arms.
It's like we forget good stuff that we have, or the stuff we already have.
Just the simple stuff. Exactly.
So yeah, but yeah, really glad that you enjoyed this. Glad as well that it kind of changed your mind around Echo, and that she ended off, sort of absorbing the good of her ancestors and using that for her present relatives to fight off Fisk. Yeah, the whole look on Zane's face as he catches Henry, really good. Henry, a very good shot.
He was.
I hasten to add.
He was, absolutely.
And with the silencer, which I don't know whether it's just something random that I know, but I always thought silencers kind of make it harder.
Oh, really?
To use a gun. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd say it might be completely wrong.
I know very, very small amount to make guns.
No, me too.
I must admit. But we are big fans here, as you know, Harvey, of the Daredevil series. I know it's probably the biggest of all the series, probably because it was the first as well. Jessica Jones, huge fans of that as well, and I'm also quite partial to Luke Cage as well. So hard for me to pick one of the series that is the best series. Some of them have ups and downs in them. I think the second series of Daredevil is okay, and the third series is really good. First season of Jessica Jones is probably my favourite of all of them, and as I say, I also love Luke Cage too. But excited to see them return.
Absolutely, and certainly, yes, that scene between Karen Page and James Wesley is absolutely awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Like, James Wesley was one of my favourite characters. To have him bumped off there, like, no.
I know, he was great, wasn't he? Really, really good.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. Thanks to all of you for your feedback, and thanks to everybody for the feedback throughout the season.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Thanks, everyone.
Back to the closeout with myself, Chris and John. If you want to email us and tell us any further thoughts you have, you can always email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or alternatively, you can pop on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries.
Yes, you can also support TV Podcast Industries by subscribing over at TV Podcast Industries for all the new stuff coming down the track, such as Star Wars The Bad Batch, which begins on February 24th. There is also our coverage of the epic 10-episode series of Shogun, the adapted TV show from James Clavell's book of the same name.
It's the new one, not the 80s one.
Yes, it's the new one.
Brand new epic show coming out on from FX, which will be on Disney Plus weekly from February 28th.
Indeed. And of course, the dulcet tones of Chris and Derek will be there for the remaining episodes of the season 2 of Invincible.
That's right.
As well.
Yeah, that comes in March.
Yes. So please subscribe to the podcast, and of course share the podcast with people that you know, because sharing the podcast is of course sharing the love.
First stuff, thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back with you again really soon.
Yes, thank you so much, and we'll speak to you in a couple of weeks. Bye.
Yes, thanks so much, fellow defenders, for echoing with us through this series of Echo. In the meantime, of course, though, keep watching, keep listening, and of course keep defending. Maybe.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.